You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Welcome into the latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. The official podcast of minor league baseball has arrived for the first week of October. Tyler Mon, Sam Dykstra, Benjamin Hill. Sam wearing an MILB quarter zip today. I have a polo now that's very similar looking. We could match. We could be buddies.
We could. We did not coordinate that today. Maybe we should start coordinating outfits on this podcast more often. Usually it's a surprise to find out what we're wearing each day.
We did have that one week where we were all wearing collared shirts. That was a miracle. But a little bit more, we're more casual today. We're into the minor league baseball off season as we welcome you into this week's episode. Benjamin Hill is not in the off season because there is never an off season for Benjamin Hill. But what's going on, man?
Quite a lot's going on. That's right. Never an off season. I'm getting married on Saturday. So
I know.
That's on my mind right now. We're recording this on Thursday. It'll be out. This episode will be out tomorrow, so still pre-wedding. So,
still time for Jill to be like, I don't know about this. Although there's still time. You share another human being with her, so it's kind of locked in.
That's true. That makes escape harder. But yeah, we are looking forward to it. It does have a minor league baseball tie-in. I think we'll devote some time in future episodes when everything's said and done to talking about it. It's actually a fairly significant minor league tie-in, hint, spoiler alert.
Maybe we shouldn't put it out there yet.
No,
we don't want people showing up.
I'll keep it at that. Yeah, I don't want crashers at the venue.
Is Shelly from the Modesto Nuts going to show up and try to steal you away?
Yeah, when they say, does anyone object? Shelly's going to be in the back like, no, my one true love, getting away. You devoted yourself to me, and I did, but I'd look at mascot love as a different category.
Well, it's long distance, and yeah,
it's a different animal or different nut, as it were. But yeah, and also it just, I don't know if ironic's the word, but I'm getting married during a Phillies playoff game. I grew up in Philly, big Phillies fan as a kid, and it's just funny to me that if you talk to me as a kid about circumstances in which you get married, I would have said never during a Phillies game as a kid, period. So it's just funny the Phillies are kicking off their postseason and I'm getting married and missing the game.
I think it's pretty good dedication to the future of your life and your actual, the mother of your child. You're above the Phils to me, but you could have it on at the reception too, right?
Yeah, but the game's at 4 and the ceremony's at 6, so by the time it really gets to the reception, it might be over.
It's a one-run game and you're starting this wedding and it's the 8th inning.
Yeah, there might be a classic postseason moment that I completely miss because I'm just up there being like, I do.
have one AirPod in at the altar. It sounds like an all right idea.
We've already worked out a series of signals where I'm just gonna have fingers up in the audience.
Sam, you need to bring a whiteboard. You can scribble results on and erase and hold up for Ben it's 4-3 in the 8th. I think there's a lot of things you could do. I know.
My suit is just going to be a whiteboard. I think that's what we're going to.
I'll hold up a sign that says "walk off," and I'll be like, "Well, okay."
if you say so.
All right, you guys. Well, we are we're excited to be into the minor league baseball offseason because that means it is the Major League Baseball postseason and all kinds of fun stuff to talk about on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. You can, of course, get in touch with us, podcast@milb.com. You can follow these dudes on Twitter, Sam Dykstra, MILB, and Ben's Biz. You can find us all on Instagram as well. And let's roll. The minor league baseball postseason is in the books, you guys.
Well, yeah, you were the one who had the front row seat to it, Tyler, at Saturday's AAA National Championship game between the Sugarland Space Cowboys and the who was the other
Omaha
Omaha
Storm
Storm
Chasers.
Chasers.
I'm
Wow.
so sorry to my
Wow.
Kansas City Royals,
Wow.
brother. Well,
Wow.
let me put it this way. I had a brain fart there for a second because Sugarland thoroughly dominated that game. I mean, at least in they were going back and forth early on. But it was Sugarland that came away with a pretty handy victory. Tyler, what did you see between those two teams?
It was a wild one, man. Sugarland led 3-0 early. Omaha turned it around, took a 4-3 lead, and then Sugarland just erupted on the way to a 13-6 final, I believe, the final in that game. I literally have my scorecard from the AAA National Championship game.
Yeah, you might want to check with the broadcaster or something to see
Right
what the final
here.
score was.
I don't know if you guys want to screenshot that, frame it on your wall. 13-6 was the final in that one. An MVP performance on his 26th birthday for Shea Whitcomb, the Astros number 14 prospect, who, man, did not have an easy week, committed 4 errors in a big league game and immediately got sent down. Then, doesn't pout, doesn't quit on himself, goes out and throws out an amazing performance at the plate. He was the DH that day for Sugarland and helps lead the Space Cowboys to a AAA national championship. It was very cool for both of these teams. Talking to Mike Jersley on the Omaha side and to Mickey Story on the Sugarland side, the two managers. It was really neat to see, kind of their differing stories. Mickey Story was just drafted in 2008, pitched in the big leagues just as of a few years ago. Mike Jersley is in his 3rd different stint as the manager in Omaha, and a guy who is, a baseball lifer, was a big league third base coach for a world championship team back in 2015 for the Royals, and also 2014 was on that staff as well. So that was really cool. Getting a chance to talk with some of the prospects on each side was very cool. Bryce Matthews, the number 3 ranked Astros prospect, went yard in that game, not coincidentally, a day after I told him that we went to the same college and he was my favorite Nebraska Cornhusker baseball player of all time. So obviously did that for me, and I appreciate it, Bryce. It was very cool of you. But no, it was a very offense heavy game in which we really expected, the bullpens are going to be the biggest factor in this game. And the bats just lit up early and stayed that way throughout the night. That game did kind of calm down after about the 5th inning, and Sugarland just held strong throughout the entirety. And a big congrats to that franchise. Such an interesting story. They were an independent team as of 4 years ago and then brought into the fold as the Astros AAA affiliate. Mickey Story is the only manager that team has known in its affiliated age. They won a couple of Atlantic League titles as an indie ball team back in 2016 and 2018. This year, their first Pacific Coast League championship, taking down Reno in the PCL championship series, and then winning a AAA national championship. And it was cool. I mean, you could tell all of these teams desperately wanted to win this thing, or both of these teams, I should say. And, Sugarland carried it over the line. And you hear so often about, minor league teams, minor league front offices, nobody cares about the postseason, whatever. These dudes definitely care about the postseason. And to see the way Sugarland celebrated, the way they got to celebrate with Shea Whitcomb, they were getting set to take the picture with the AAA National Champions banner. And we were wrapping up our post-game interview with Shea, Jim Callis and I on MLB Network. And the entire team just turned and started yelling at him to get off of the headset and come join them. So it was fun, man. It was a very cool experience, and a huge congratulations to the Space Cowboys and to the championship winning group that I feel like has celebrated a lot throughout their time in that Astros system and now gets a chance to do it at the highest level in the minor leagues.
Yeah, one thing I want to kind of underline about everything you've said there is the Astros repeatedly have these winners. I mean, you guys had members of the front office in the booth with you talking about that and how, pretty consistently they rank low in prospect rankings because they get good players and they graduate them really well to the majors. And it's it's only 2 or 3 guys at a time, and it's not particularly a deep system, but outside of maybe a Forrest Whitley, who did pitch in that game and has contributed to the Astros bullpen at times this year, they're really top of the list names usually come through for Houston in one way or another. Talking about Jeremy Pena, Yainer Diaz, Jordan Alvarez was that guy a few years ago, Kyle Tucker before him, or around that same era. I mean, they do a really good job of their peak prospects, graduating them to the majors and turning them into high quality major leaguers who are keeping that moving. Now they're at a kind of inflection point at the major league level. We're talking now just after they got eliminated against the Tigers in the AL wildcard series. Alex Bregman is a free agent. What is going to happen to them at third base? What is going to happen to them at first base? What are they going to do for pitching with Justin Verlander probably gone in the offseason? We'll see how that goes. But the Astros have done a really good job of turning things over. Bryce Matthews could be their third baseman next year. Jacob Melton could be a contributor for them in the outfield. He didn't play in that game, but he has been a pretty regular contributor on offense and defense for Sugarland. Houston's not going anywhere as a contender, I don't think. And this farm system, even if it doesn't look good on the surface, they'll keep doing what they do, and they'll bring up the right names at the right time and plug them into the right holes.
You know, we talked to Gavin Dickey, the assistant general manager for the Astros, is on the player development side and knows all of these guys and their stories and how they've climbed through the chain and won. And Jim Callis, did bring that up of like, we pretty regularly don't have you guys ranked very highly. And Gavin jumped in and was like, I think it was 29th this season in all of baseball. But it really is. They just do things in a different way. And we talked to him and Mitch Meyer, the director of player development for the Royals, about the fact that winning in the minor leagues is important. And these are two organizations that treat all of their prospects in a way in which these guys know, all of you could be part of something big for us someday. Not every organization is like that. And, not singling any organizations out, but there are organizations who, if you are a prospect and you are a guy, you're going to get a lot of resources, a lot of dedication into making your way to the big league level. But if you're kind of a quote unquote filler prospect or a filler player, you're not going to get maybe the same level of focus. The Astros and Royals are not like that. Those two franchises, those two front offices pour so much into developing all of these players and into developing winners as well. And both of those teams on to the postseason. Of course, the Royals moving on from the wild card series into the division round. And, to be in a situation where that team lost 106 games a year ago, and now they've got an opportunity to be, they're one series away. You win the division series, you're back in the ALCS. And I think we get caught up so often in, the small market teams, they have to go through these rebuilding eras and blah, blah, blah. The Royals have turned it around, and they've got obviously a lot waiting in the wings as well. But a huge congratulations to the Sugarland Space Cowboys, AAA national champions in 2024. And I didn't call them the Skeeters once on television, which was good. They've been the Space Cowboys for a while, but for some reason my brain was like, the Skeeters. Remember how they're called the Skeeters? Remember the Skeeters? But I didn't do it. I didn't screw it up. Please clap, as Jeb Bush would say. All right, you guys. Let's move on. Ben, Crooked Numbers has made its return. One of my favorite columns, as always, on the site. The second half of the season, full of some wildness. Give us some highlights from Crooked Numbers.
Yeah, well, this isn't the second half of the season. This was a monthly column this season. It came back in full strength this season, so it's just September. This was the season I gave the most crooked coverage since 7 or 8 years. I mean, the last time I probably wrote this many Crooked Numbers columns, it was prior to the Astros getting in the ALCS for 7 straight years. Cars 3 hadn't even come out yet.
Nor Inside Out 2.
Yeah. That somebody put out a tweet that like all the things that have happened since the Astros didn't make the ALCS, and one of
Cars 3 was one.
Yeah, we were laughing at that. It was just such a weird benchmark to use for like, can you believe how long it's been?
That happened before Cars 3 arrived in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I mean, one of the comments on the tweet was just like, I can't fathom a world before Cars 3 came out. Anyhow, we've gone off proverbial rails so quickly. Well, as a great segue to talking about the AAA National Championship, the Omaha Storm Chasers, to get to the AAA National Championship, won the Pacific Coast League title, of course. And no, they won the International League title, of course. And this made them the first AAA team in history to win a title at all 3 AAA leagues. They started in the American Association and won a couple titles there, including in their inaugural season, and I believe it was 1969. And then they switched to the Pacific Coast League upon the dissolution of the American Association. Played there for quite a while, over 2 decades, won a couple titles there. Then, as part of the larger reorganization of minor league baseball, they switched from the PCL to the IL and then won the International League Championship this year. So a rare trifecta, an unprecedented trifecta for the Omaha Storm Chasers to win a title at 3 different AAA leagues. So that's a favorite one for me. Yeah, I could just go on and on about all these. I know our time is relatively short. This guy, in terms of not a single game moment, most of Crooked Numbers, I highlight just a crazy thing that happened in a particular game. But to me, just one of the craziest stat lines of the season. Luke Adams, high A Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. He played in 101 games this season and hit 227. His on base percentage, 443.
Holy cow.
42 points higher than any other player in the league. 443 OBP after hitting just 227 because he led the league in walks with 78 and got hit by a pitch 40 times, a Midwest League record. And he did that in just 101 games. So he's the Brewers. I mean, Sam could talk about him. He's the Brewers' number 8 prospect. Of course, it took him doing something kind of weird like this to get my attention. But I'm like, man, I love that kind of stat line. A dude who gets on base by any means necessary.
Yeah, I mean, he's got really good raw power. I mean, part of the reason why that average is pretty low is Midwest League is fairly pitcher friendly, and he likes to hit the ball in the air, I think. So those are usually a little bit more catchable, but talking to Brewers people, they're just like, he knows the strike zone really well. And I don't know how much of that factors into getting hit by pitch. Like, I think he crowds the plate a little bit much, and he's not afraid to get out of, or not get out of the way in this case. I don't know how much of that is a skill. Obviously something is happening there. But he gets on base and he can hit for power, and he's got a pretty good arm at third base. So they really like how he's come along there for Luke Adams. And it's one of the most fascinating stat lines anywhere in the minors. So I'm glad you included it.
One of my favorite minor league baseball career things was that in back-to-back years, I got to see the Carolina League hit by pitch record set. Seth Lohman set it for the Winston-Salem Dash in 2010. And then the team that I worked for, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, Jared Prince, matched it the next year. And they each broke a record that had been like 35 years old. And that was one of those very random minor league baseball. So 43 times being hit by a pitch is a lot.
Yeah, 40
hit by pitches.
40. A mere 40. A mere 40.
I'm already exaggerating the tail.
Yeah, exactly. But 40 in 101 games. So crazy season for Luke Adams, and got on base at a ridiculous clip, especially for a guy who doesn't hit for average. Speaking of hit by pitches, this to me was the quote unquote crookedest moment in the entire playoffs of any level of minor league play. I can't remember if we mentioned this before, but Kyle Caros of the Spokane Indians, he won the Northwest League Championship for his team, drove in the winning run to end their championship series against the Hillsboro Hops. He got hit by a pitch with the bases loaded, and that was the walk-off RBI that ended the entire season. And if you watch the video of that, it's funny because there's this like 1 second where he's just like, ow, and the fans are kind of like, ooh, and then it just switches to like, everybody's like, we just won the championship. And that reminded me that like the Northwest League has some precedence for this. Back in 2018, the Eugene Emeralds won the Northwest League Championship on an even crazier walk-off victory. They won on a balk-off against the Spokane Indians. So the Spokane Indians in a span of 6 years have lost the Northwest League Championship on a balk-off and won it on a guy getting hit by a pitch. A plunk-off. Yeah, I was looking. Yeah. It's got to be a plunk-off. Yeah,
I like it. Crooked Numbers is one of my favorite columns.
Yeah, so we could go on and on and on about all this stuff. Maybe one more. There's 2 guys in all of baseball history who are named. Do you pronounce it? How do you even pronounce it?
Jimmy Herget.
Yeah, it's Herget. Yeah, I didn't know if it like French, like Herget. There's Jimmy Herget and Jimmy Herget and Kevin Herget. Herget. They're the only 2 guys in baseball history to have that last name. And on September 4th, there was a AAA game between the Gwinnett Stripers and the Nashville Sounds, in which Jimmy Herget pitched 1 1/3 scoreless innings of relief, leaving the game after the 5th inning. Then in the top of the 6th, who takes the mound? Kevin Herget. So the back-to-back pitchers in this game were the only Hergets to ever play in baseball history, So
Baseball's
I like that
so weird. Baseball's so weird, and I love it so much.
Yeah, you gotta forget while the Hergetting's good.
That works so much better than Hergé.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going with that. There's
the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons is Bobby Hebert, Hebert. Any deep cut Seinfeld fan is very excited about this conversation.
And Deep Cut Seinfeld fans will surely, most of them like baseball, so they will like this final item I will mention from Crooked Numbers, is that the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs had their first walk-off grand slam in franchise history on opening day. Rodolfo Castro hit it to give them a 7-4 win over the Woo Sox. The say I can't
the Worcester,
the Worcester
Red Sox.
The Worcester Red Sox. So opening day, March 29th, the Iron Pigs win against the Woo Sox, the Worcester Red Sox, 7-4 on a walk-off grand slam. How does the season end in September? You guessed it, with a walk-off grand slam to give them a 7-4 win against the Worcester Red Sox. Derek Hall hit the second one. And
it's
so
crazy.
both of those were 7-4 scores. I mentioned on Twitter that that should be called a grand salami sandwich, and the team's GM Kurt Landis came in like, yes, we should have a grand salami sandwich, at the concession stand next year, and it should cost $7.40 to celebrate these two 7-4 scores. It was pointed out on Twitter, and I had missed this, even though I remember knowing about it, that there is an asterisk to this bizarre beginning and ending to the season, in that Rodolfo Castro's grand slam on opening day, the score was 4-4 when he hit it, so the final score should be 8-4. But it wasn't technically a grand slam because one of the runners passed another in the ensuing celebrations. So that should have been an 8-4 score. So technically, it wasn't a pair of grand slams. It was a 3-run home run and a grand slam.
In the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. It was both grand slams. Yeah.
But
it takes some massaging on both sides, but no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't count
this.
Yeah, we got to count it as
the Crooked Committee has decided that this counts.
Yeah. And the fact that it makes it even better that it actually was only a 3-run home run, because then it allowed them to win by that exact same score, 7-4, on the final day of the season when Derek Hall hit his. So yeah, a weird and memorable and triumphant way to begin the season, on March 29th, and then all the way into September 22nd, when the season ended. Walk-off grand slams. And only one was actually a walk-off grand slam, but those are the only walk-off grand slams in team history. So it's such a weird way to cap the season and start it at the same time.
I like the idea of us being the Crooked Committee. I like that. We get to adjudicate on these things. Is that a grand slam? Yes, indeed, says the Crooked Committee. You can read all of that, of course, the Crooked Numbers column up at MILB.com. And we obviously are a podcast that has deep roots in a lot of ways in the state of North Carolina. And in that way, we are extending all of our thoughts and wishes to the state that we always call the cradle of minor league baseball, as well as everyone else who was affected by Hurricane Helene last week and into this week. It is really difficult to see the scenes that are coming out of Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee and elsewhere. Asheville, a longtime home to one of the most legendary franchises in minor league baseball, the Asheville Tourists. We are sending all of our best to the Asheville Tourist family and to everyone else. And a North Carolina minor league franchise, the Hickory Crawdads, are doing their part right now to try to help contribute to some of the recovery efforts. Ben, tell us about what the Crawdads are doing this week.
Yeah, the Crawdads, they obviously play in North Carolina. They were hit by the hurricane as well, but within the context of how devastating this was, they had trees down everywhere. They lost power. They lost internet. There were issues, but within the context of this storm, they got off pretty okay. So I was talking to their GM yesterday, Douglas Locascio, I believe. Man, it's so many names I don't say out loud enough.
I think you had that right, Locascio.
Yeah, Locascio. Doug, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name last wrong, but that's really not here or there. I talked to him, and he said they were having a planning meeting earlier this week. They had a ballpark cleanup day. They were talking with the staff about what can we do. They're having these discussions with the sound of helicopters flying to and from the Hickory Regional Airport, because that airport has been used as a hub for coordinating relief efforts. And they're like, so what can we do? And they came upon the idea to take pretty much every jersey they had, not every single jersey, but many, many of their jerseys, and auction them off. Some they were going to use for next year. Some they were probably going to hold on to depending on the player in question. But they have 80 some jerseys. Pretty much all the black alternates that say dads on the front are being auctioned. They have home reds, alternate blues, road grays, some Copa Llamas de Hickory jerseys, worn by all sorts of players, notable ones including Kumar Rocker, Wyatt Langford,
Sebastian
Walcott,
Luis Angel Acuna.
Luis Angel Acuna. Yes, there's some big names in there. Other names that just might be people that you root for in the Rangers organization or whatever their backstories may be. So that auction runs all the way through next Saturday, October 12th. You can go to the Crawdads, Hickory Crawdads website, check out the article on MILB or MLB.com. Read a little bit more about how it came together. And if you're at all interested in these jerseys, it's a great way to get a great piece of memorabilia. Maybe pay a little more than you otherwise would, because 100% of the proceeds go to the Red Cross and their relief efforts, specifically in Western North Carolina.
Yeah, so pretty amazing stuff, and you can go check that out and do your part to help support not only the minor league baseball community in that area, the 828 area code, as the Crawdads pointed out, with them and with Asheville and with Boone, North Carolina, the home of Appalachian State, another great baseball community. But you can find all that information, of course, at MLB.com and MILB.com as well. And our final piece of our opening segment this week, Sam, we're just a few days away from the start of the Arizona Fall League in 2024, as crazy as that is. Rosters out there, and the AFL kicks off coming up on Monday.
Yeah, Monday is when opening day of the Arizona Fall League will be. It's funny thinking about like last Saturday is when AAA ended and like, oh, we get to enjoy the offseason. Well, if you live in Prospect Land, not so much, and not a bad way. I mean, I love the Fall League every year. I'll be there for weeks 2 and 3, covering, double headers in some cases, at least one game every day that I'm there, with some minor off days here and there. But like, it's one of my favorite things just because it is always so loaded with talent. This year is no different. When rosters were announced, there were 14 top 100 prospects going down there. There might be some others who jump onto the top 100 by the time we update the list heading into the preseason of 2025. We'll see how guys look in the desert. But just a few names I'm going to be looking out for. Jack Caglione, who was the 6th overall pick in this year's draft by the Royals. Kansas City kind of surprising me by sending him there after he had a long season at Florida and then played at high A Quad Cities, but they're continuing to get aggressive with him. He was only listed as a first baseman on the roster so far, but we know they're open to him playing 2 ways. We'll see if maybe he starts a throwing program in Surprise. We'll see how that goes. Ethan Salas, top Padres prospect, will be playing for Peoria. An uneven year for him at high A Fort Wayne as the Padres continue to be aggressive with him. But he started to show signs late in the season. I think he led high A in doubles from August 1st onward. How much of that momentum does he carry to the Fall League? Also sticking with the Padres, Leo Dallas DeVries, who is a 17-year-old playing at single A this year. He got a lot of momentum in the second half of the season, then had a shoulder problem, missed a few weeks there at the tail end. They're going to keep him close to home in Peoria with an assignment to the Javelinas. We'll see how much he plays. I'm not too worried about how he's going to look. He's going to be so young. He's easily the youngest player headed to the Fall League, but this is an interesting test for him. How does he handle it? I think a lot of this is just keeping him close to the Peoria facility, right? Going into the offseason and allowing him to learn more of the Padres practices and get comfortable with that facility. But still, he's going to get in some Fall League games and he's going to face some guys who are 6, 7, maybe even 8 years older than him. How does he handle that challenge? That'll be fascinating. Some other pop-up names. You look at somebody like Bryce Eldridge, the first baseman of the Giants. He played in 4 different levels of the Giants system this year as they continued to just wanting to get him more games. He showed some real power, some real contact ability everywhere he played. He is a first baseman, so that kind of limits him a little bit. But looking at that same position, Xavier Isaac of the Rays, he moved to Double A and then kind of struggled. He struck out more than 40% of the time. So what happens when he goes to the Fall League, which is a hitter-friendly environment, as we say every year? His power is right there with Jack Caglione for like best overall in the Fall League. Wouldn't be surprised if those guys are challenging each other for both the home run and slugging title, depending on how things go, how playing time goes. But Xavier Isaac, if he can kind of settle in and make more contact in the Fall League, he could be an MVP candidate for sure. And one thing that I've heard from Tampa Bay is that they're going to start throwing him some time in the outfield. Him and Trey Morgan, who's another top first base prospect in the Tampa Bay system. Those guys are going to kind of rotate between first and the outfield. So opening up an avenue to St. Pete for Isaac. We'll see how he handles defensive reps in the grass, but that's just another thing to follow in the fall league. We'll talk about so many more storylines. I'm interested to bring you guys some interviews and some coverage from the ground in the Valley, but that's something to kind of whet the palate for now, considering opening day is on Monday.
All right, you guys, we are going to pivot to our interview this week and head to Salt Lake City, where we got a chance last week to hear about the conclusion to the Salt Lake Bees' final season at Smith's Ballpark. Ben, this was a really cool conversation. It's a changing of the guard in Salt Lake, but an era that you can tell that franchise is really, really excited for coming up in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Last season at Smith's Ballpark for the Bees this year, the opening a new ballpark next year in technically the surrounding town of South Jordan. But we have Tony Parks, who this season was in his first year as the Bees broadcaster. He was the replacement for Steve Klauke, who of course passed away this year, and we talk about that as well. But Tony was also the team's on-field MC for years prior to becoming the team's broadcaster, and someone who went to games from a very young age and was, intimately connected with the Bees and this ballpark. And we reached out to him because we thought it'd be a great person to talk about what it means for the Bees and memories of Smith's Stadium and what it's like to be transitioning to a new facility. So let's get in to all that with Tony Parks, the broadcaster for the Salt Lake Bees. 2024 marked the final season at Smith's Ballpark, the home of the Salt Lake Bees for the last 3 decades. Next season, they're moving to a new ballpark in Salt Lake and starting a new era of the franchise. To talk about the last season at Smith's Ballpark, we have Tony Parks, the voice of the Salt Lake Bees this season in his debut season as the broadcaster. But before that, the on-field MC and also a native of the Salt Lake City region, someone who has a lot of memories at that ballpark, and thought he'd be a great person to fill us in on the last season of Smith's Ballpark and the Bees experience in general. So, Tony, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. It's strange to be at the ballpark right now and not getting ready for a game. That's what this time of the year is like. And so even when there's not a game, we find our way back to the ballpark. That's the way our life is. You guys know all too well.
Yes, absolutely. Never really seems to end. So you've been involved with the Bees in some capacity for the last almost 2 decades now, but what are your first memories of Smith's Ballpark? Just going back to someone who grew up in the area as a sports fan. It opened in 1994. I mean,
Yeah.
was this part of your life from the beginning?
It really was. I watched WGN as a kid, and Harry Carey and Steve Stone. It was great. Harry Carey brought the energy and the passion. Wrigley Field looked like a place you wanted to be. Steve Stone would teach you how to play the game. The Cubs would show you how not to play the game. It was kind of a fun experience growing up in those years, but no, we had a lot of fun, and the ballpark was really special. So when my mom and I got here, long story, we were in the Bay Area. Then we got here, this ballpark was really one of the first places we wanted to be at, and to be at a lot. And the first game I was here, the Buzz had a 5-3 lead and gave up 10 runs in the top of the 8th. And then that's when we started to coin the term that PCL stands for playing chutes and ladders, because the game was just flipped upside down. But no matter what, we sat on the berm in left field. And then we actually got to go on the field and watch the fireworks from the outfield grass. There were so many unique things to this place. The other thing that people forget is there was an electrifying excitement about AAA baseball being here. When the Trappers were here, and we got here at the very end of that, it was exciting just because they were good and people liked baseball. But now you had guys who had played in the major leagues, guys that were going to play in the major leagues, and there was a beautiful connection there with the Twins previously and now with the Angels affiliate. So yeah, we were around here. We were around here a lot. I heard Steve Klauke as a young kid call games. That meant a lot to me. To like everything about this place, really everything about it has a deep fabric to my an era in my life, transitioning here to Salt Lake City, connecting family, safe place to be, and obviously a wonderful sport to watch.
Yeah, in the ballpark, I only got to see a game at Smith's Ballpark once. I believe it was 2017. Don't remember the specifics of the game, but I, like almost everyone who visits there, remembers the view of the
Yep.
mountains. Even though it's an urban ballpark, you just have this beautiful mountain view. Since I've been traveling through the minors for a long time, people say, "What are the best views?" And you just have to mention Salt Lake every time. Um, so for you, when you think of the ballpark, what are other features, that stand out? Elements of the ballpark, architecturally, or just the fan experience that you really think of as highlights.
Yeah, I always think of the berm. The fact that it was very affordable to sit out there. A lot of ballparks will have a berm, but it's a much smaller section. Maybe it's only in the alley, maybe it's on the side. Like it's very specific. This one covered the entire outfield area. And there was nothing like one of those nights where you see the mountains in the background, and then you have that berm just full of blankets, toddlers running around, families having a conversation. Sunday was so majestic because the stands were packed, the berm was packed. It was this gorgeous fall afternoon, 74 degrees, the mountains as you're talking about in the background. These were the things that just made this place so special. I mean, it just did. So the berm is always one of those. The mountains. I love the double decker seating. It looked and felt big. The way the suites, shined up over the top with the glass windows. It just, in the early years especially, it had a major league-esque feel to it, even though it wasn't a major league ballpark. But the other thing too is the voice of Jeff Reeves booming over that microphone. His energy level was warm and welcoming, and the tone of his voice had that deep, deep sound to it. It sounded like a big game. There's so many things about this ballpark that felt major league, from a great natural back setting to a lot of the amenities there in the ballpark to the sounds, a play-by-play guy that was major league caliber. As a fan, and then moving into a person who worked here, we were really, really blessed a lot of times to have a major league experience at a minor league park.
Yeah, and you mentioned the experience on Sunday and how, just the joy that was kind of around it. How else would you describe it? I mean, because we're sitting here now on Thursday, it's the final game at the
Yeah.
Oakland Coliseum today. You talk
Wow.
about growing up in the Bay Area,
Yep.
but you guys are staying in the area, right? So it's just, hey, we're going to watch the Bees next year. It's just in a different place. But what was it like for everybody around, knowing that was final game they're going to watch at Smith's?
Man, I got goosebumps right when you said that, because it felt like a holiday. It really, really did. There was this jovial feel. I went down on the concourse and I stayed there long before we taped the first TV segment as early as possible, because I wanted to walk the concourse, see some people that I had a chance to meet over all those years. And the energy level was like a holiday. You could feel that it was a one-time thing. You could feel this day had history to it. And not to mention that the beauty that it like, if you could draw it up to be exactly one way, that's the way it would be. Gorgeous weather, a jovial crowd, families everywhere. You could see different generations. There was one family that had 4 generations that were right there at the game, walking together, getting ready. And he brought me to my first game then, and his dad brought him back in 70. I mean, it was incredible just having a chance to hear them talk, and misty eyes, and people who were excited, and people couldn't wait to take their kids there. They're like, hey, we brought her here when it was her first game as an infant. Now she's 5, but we had to be at the last game. You could just feel that people had to be there so they could be a part of that history, because the history of the ballpark, it dug deep into their heart and their family. Back to your point, when you said you were there in 2017, you missed the particulars of the game. Most of these people do. When they talked about their favorite ballpark memory, it was not about a grand slam. It wasn't about a 2-run double that changed the lead. It was about grandpa. It was about dad. It was about my brother. It was about this one special magic moment with my daughter. And to hear them tell those stories. And what was cool is me remembering the game, me remembering that night, and not knowing that in, in section, 112, there was somebody over there who had experienced something very beautiful. So a night at the ballpark can go by, and you never know just who's going to be touched most by anything that can take place, because baseball does that. It opens up for conversation. It opens up for connecting with people around you. It's not a game that's overly intense. It's supposed to be enjoyable, relaxing. And Sunday, you could feel that. You could feel that from that crowd. That conversation, that buzz of that conversation, you could hear throughout the stadium. Occasionally somebody's loud cackle would come louder than the conversation. It was like, this is truly perfect. It's like, if heaven isn't exactly like this, I don't know. We got to talk. Like it just felt like that's the way this should feel. And I'll never forget it.
Man, I don't know if I've ever felt FOMO more on this podcast than I ever did right now, wishing I was there on Sunday. I don't
Yeah.
know. There you go. But
Yeah.
just to kind of pivot to the new place. I mean, you talk about how many traditions have been established at Smith's. I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be a whole set of new ones established at the new place. I'm sure you wish you could take the mountain range and like move it to the exact same mountain range, the same exact view. You
The
can't do
same
that.
view. Yeah.
Yeah, but what are the new things that you think are going to become the new traditions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be
Wasatch,
great.
right? The Wasatch Mountain Ranch.
Yeah, one last thing I do want to say is it was cool. I remember the date. It was November 11th. It was after I had been named the play-by-play voice of the Bees. Steve Klauke was so happy for me. We called a college football game together, and I remember walking into the college football press box, and I glanced up, and I was very focused on the Michigan score at the time. They were playing Penn State. And so I walk in, and somebody says, "Hey, somebody wants to see you in here. They want to talk." And I go, "Oh, okay." And I turn the corner to Steve Clark. It's the first time I had seen him since I was named the play-by-play guy. And so anyway, we had this really wonderful handshake and hug, and he was so proud of me, and he expressed that to me. And then he and I couldn't have been more opposite, which is what made us fun. It made our friendship so good. But I'll never forget, that's when he said, I called the first game in that stadium, and now you get to call the last game in that stadium. And I had never thought about that. I'm thinking about, I got the job, I got this, I got that. I never thought about, I'm going to call the last game in the stadium. So that was cool. So now to call the first game in the next stadium, like, that's really neat. Like turning the page is like so beautiful. I really think that community is going to be fun, because they're going to embrace a number of different things. They're very excited about having a team in their neighborhood. They're very family, very, very family. There are tons of families. They love like events in their area. They have a ton of different concerts. They have a ton of different, holiday things that go on. I actually, strange enough, last year, when I was traveling back and forth from Chicago in the off stands and the home stands, where I stayed was in that neighborhood, right around where that ballpark is. And the electricity and the excitement. I mean, they wanted to know, where's the shade spots? Where's this? Where should I get season tickets? They wanted to know everything. I remember being at a Texas Roadhouse, and the bartender would not stop asking about, what about this? How's it looking now? How's it? Because I wore my Bees hat. And so it was fun. It was like really, really cool to talk about that. The new traditions, I hope they're organic. I hope they're, just that vibe and that feel. Like here in this ballpark, we had the K crew. And if they come over there, which I think they will, they'll have their chants and their cheers. My guess is it's going to be a mix of some of the things that have always been historic and deep and beautiful to the state of Utah in the game of baseball. And there's going to be some new traditions too. And those things mixed together, if we can have the best of whatever that ends up being, that's amazing. So, but as far as now, like what's been implanted, we're going to start those conversations on, hey, what could be some unique things that we feel have a natural good feel to that community. It personalizes the community. And the other thing too, they're very big with community outreach in this neighborhood. I mean, they are passionate about that. And so it's actually going to be fun turning the page and learning and seeing and having a front row seat to how all those things come together.
Tony, you talked a little bit about that there, but you guys are in one of the unique minor league markets in that you are a major league market now for two of the four major sports, two of the five. But, minor league baseball is its own thing, and there is such a cool connection between the Bees and not just Salt Lake City, but the whole valley and the state of Utah as kind of the minor league team now, the affiliated squad in the state of Utah. What is it like for fans who, obviously you can go to a Jazz game, you can go to a Utah Hockey Club game coming up pretty soon, but the Bees hold such a special place, even though they're not going to win a World Series at any point, being a AAA franchise. But what does that connection mean, where it's so much more personal, I would think,
Yes.
for fans in that area than it is to go to a major 5-level sport?
I think there's something you're pointing out there that's very important. I think it's awesome to have, hockey in this market, NHL hockey. That's great. Obviously, the Jazz and the NBA. I mean, it's fantastic. It's a huge piece of the history of the state. I love that we're in their off season. And I also love that, look, you go to a major sporting event. I mean, these tickets, they're not just handing them out at the gas station, folks. Like that these tickets are expensive. Somebody posted something today on social media and going, yeah, I was just wanting to try this out. And they're like, this is really the ticket price. And I mean, it was insane, but there's a huge demand for it. Here, there's a demand for it, and you still have, something that's much more affordable for a family. And you go to a game like that, and there's a lot with parking and walking and getting in and getting out. It could be, there's no doubt that it can be stressful. Our big thing too, I know it's going to be a huge emphasis on the fan experience that comes from getting in, getting out, getting to your seat. Like there's a lot of conversation about how to be incredibly efficient. When you're downtown, kind of like we are in this ballpark area, just right outside of the heart of downtown, if you will, you have some logistical challenges where there's not a lot you can do sometimes. In the new ballpark, I know there's going to be a huge emphasis on, okay, it's not just the entertainment that we give them. How do we relieve stress from people as they go from here to there to there? How do we make sure that communication is so clear that they just feel emotionally free as they go to one step to the other? Or if they do have a hiccup here, that they can recover in this, realm. If people have kids, ADA seating, there's so much that we go through to make sure that we go through the process of the fan, what they experience, so that not only do they want to come back, but they love that when they go there, they know they can count on an efficient and then obviously a fun experience as well.
From the standpoint of the ballpark itself, you are going to be, as you said, the voice of the first game in the history of this new park, and you get to call it home from now until, the next chapter of life. Is there a feature of the ballpark that you're, in minor league ballparks, we've got so many fun things that, in Nashville, there's a guitar-shaped scoreboard, and in Frisco, there's a lazy river. Right. And, Albuquerque used to have a hill in center field, all these fun little things. Is there something about the ballpark itself that you especially are excited for?
It's a lot of those things are going to be coming together, and they're kind of under wraps. So we get to unveil those. I can't unveil every single secret, but I can tell you that, yeah, there's going to be some unique intricacies to this ballpark that I think are going to be fun, that people are going to go, oh yeah, what's the ballpark with yeah, like Albuquerque with the big mound out in center field, or, I really loved El Paso, a lot of the features that they had at that ballpark too, right? Like there's so many cool things. I think that's what's fun about a new ballpark is it's this somewhat empty canvas, but this open canvas, and we get to paint the picture. So I'm not going to give it all away. There will be a view of the mountains. I'll say that. You probably could have guessed that. But there will be a number of things that I think fans are really going to love. Something they take, and remember as part of the fan experience that gives it character, flavor, and a signature that they know that place by. I think that is like the next step for what we're going to try to do here, because this ballpark had some of that. But I always felt like we actually could add more, right? Like if we could have started over, there's a few little things I wish we could have had. Whereas with this next one, we can now get into some of those, like, how does this work? Or how can we utilize that? Or here's a nice little thing. Or like I look at Sugarland's ballpark and I see some things. I'm like, there you go. They really thought about that. Like, that's cool. Like that's the shape of Texas with the big video board. That's what I'm talking about. The manual scoreboard on the left, like, yeah, like the way to give it character. The thing that makes a ballpark so great is they all have different feel. They all have different personality. So that's going to be a huge thing for us, is to make sure that the personality of this ballpark shines through early and often, for sure.
Tony, you mentioned a little bit earlier, about working with Steve Klauke and, how important he was to you. It was a really difficult year in that regard, in that he retired at the end of 2023 and then unexpectedly died in an accident in 2024. What was it like, processing that while also, succeeding him at the same time it's the last season in Smith's ballpark before, going to a new ballpark? It seems like a really heavy and emotional time with all these different transitions, tragedies, new beginnings, right. A whole swirl of things happening at once.
It's weird because in some ways next year is going to feel like my first year, right? Like it in a weird way, because we had so many things happening that some of them were really good. We got our TV deal done. but it was, I think, late April, right? And so then we did a great job with a lot of TV games here locally. That was awesome. And we, as a team, hit the ground running in a great way. And so some of these were really positive, but they altered a lot of what was happening in the moment. We were kind of making adjustments on the fly. Klauke thing was a heavy one because he, in so many ways, was, I mean, he was so important to this ballpark, to this community, to baseball in Utah. To me personally, there was so much there. And it really meant a lot. I remember him turning down a media opportunity. There was a guy who wanted to do a story on the both of us. And so we wanted to do a story on the both of us, and Steve wouldn't do it because Steve didn't want anything to be taken away from me. No attention at all. He's like, nope, this is about you now. I'm out. I'm going to go sit right over there in the stands. He would come up and say hi in the press box, but he didn't stay long because he did not want attention drawn away from me trying to establish what I was doing. And I always, it was just, this is who he was. But what happens is, when he had passed, to have to call a game that night and then each night after that, and then the tributes, which were beautiful, they really helped, and they helped with the healing, and they helped with some of those things. And you felt emotional energy and power to it, and you tried to tap into those different things. But there were, I remember that first time I'm going to a new city, and because I had been to Vegas before, so I didn't call him before that series. But I forget what the next city I was going to, and I was going to call him and be like, all right, where are those dine-ins and dives and all the stuff that he goes, the triple D, I forget what they're called. And he'd lay them out for me. And sometimes I'm like, why did you find that good to eat? And then I would be like, who doesn't like chicken wings? What do you mean you don't like chicken? Like, he was the only person that didn't, right? So we'd have these conversations. And that was the first time we didn't have that conversation. Couldn't call him. And I remember just feeling it. I think it was Albuquerque is where it was. Yeah. And I remember feeling it. I remember being like, he would have known where to go. And I remember Josh Sushan, he was so great, and Joe Traub and those guys, they were so great and so helpful, and supportive because they knew him well also. And it was emotional. I'm not going to lie. It still is. I got a game Saturday in the same press box that he and I shook hands back in November. And that's the last time I saw him at a football game. And there's these triggers that are going to hit the Bears. They don't look as good on offense. And I know he's not happy about that. And his White Sox are about to set history. I know that, things like that. Like, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. I'm even more honored, but it's also mixed in with pain, because he was personal for us, man, for our family. He was personal. The way he treated my mom, the way he treated my wife, the way he showed up to so many special needs events. He came early. He's like the first one there, man. So even as we do special community events out there in Daybreak, I know he would have been one of the first people to be there to help out. Wouldn't even ask to be paid. He'd have no problem getting on the mic if he wanted, or he just loved to help other people. He loved to be a part of something special. And so I was like really looking forward to it. What people didn't know about Sunday is that I was bringing on different members of the community, icons in baseball, and I was going to bring him on the Sunday game on the TV broadcast. And I was going to wait for the ninth inning. And I was going to let him call the ninth. I knew exactly how he uses the scoreboard, so I was going to write it out like he did, set it up like he did, and let him call final 3 outs or 6 outs, depending on the situation. And that's how it was going to end. And so Sunday, I thought a lot about him, a ton about him. And we did a wonderful tribute for him out there by the logo that was on the field. And it was great seeing his wife and his kids out there. This was a really emotional year because of, and somebody had told me, oh, every year you're always going to feel, these weird things. I'm like, no, guys, no, there will never be another year like this one for so many reasons, but specifically to lose him the way we did and as shockingly as we did. So, but that's why one of my things is to culturally carry on a lot of what he did here. I take that with as much pride as anything.
Yeah, it's true. Every baseball season is an emotional one, and the end of it is always emotional, but not all seasons are created equal. And you'd be hard pressed to find one as emotional as Salt Lake had this season, for all the reasons you articulated so well. And now we rush headlong into an off season of getting ready for a new era and new memories.
So excited.
Always, yeah, no rest and always something happening. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing the new ballpark in Salt Lake, or technically, I suppose, is it in South Jordan?
South Jordan, Daybreak, Riverton. People have called it Daybreak is the official, but the extra premium seating, there'll be a lot of that at the ballpark there. I'll give that away for you. I don't want to get, I'm like, yeah, there will be some more of that there at the ballpark. So there'll be some real first class amenities and a lot of major league feel in terms of a lot of what we do in terms of that fan experience. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to start over new in that way. It was exciting to close the chapter here, you know, and to think back 30 years and to go down memory lane. Like, yeah, it's great, man. And so people had different emotions to it. Mine was one of gratitude for what we just experienced and what we're about to experience going forward.
Yeah, well, the new chapter begins. Well, it's beginning now, and
right now, yep, we were just talking
so
about
much,
I got on.
so much more to come. Well, Tony Parks, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast, and really appreciate your perspective and taking the time to speak with us.
Love to come on anytime, guys, especially as we get closer to this, and the opening. Anytime you ever need anything from me, you reach out. Love being a part of it. Thanks for having me on. And man, now we enjoy some football and basketball, and we get ready for, before you know it, pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting, and we're going to be right back in it. And there's no other place I'd rather be than at the ballpark. So it's going to be great.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club or player hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once swung for the fences for years. The others never even got up to bat. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball players did at one time exist. A. Shiv Endon. B. Dynamite Dunn. C. Poison Holtz. Go ahead and get loud if you picked B. Dynamite Dunn, who played 11 professional seasons. Although he played under 6 different major league umbrellas, Dynamite never blew up to the big. He did, however, explode onto the minor league scene in 1935, coming out of Linden, Alabama to have the most hazardous bat on the Evangeline League's Alexandria Aces of the Tiger system. The origins of Cecil Dynamite Dunn's nicknames are hard to tie down with certainty, but Dynamite Dunn was also the name of a boxer in newspaper comic strips and pulp fiction for kids in the 30s and 40s. So Dinah might have come from either the funny papers or mushroomed up out of alliterative nickname-bestowing habits common in the era. Dynamite Dunn's hitting was not common at all, though. For Dynamite, batting was a noble endeavor. After tying for the Evangeline League lead with 18 homers and also with 122 RBIs in his debut season as a pro, Dunn was far from done taking honors. In his sophomore season of 1936, there was no blasting cap on Dynamite Dunn. He won the circuit's Triple Crown by belting a league record 47 bombs, batting .378, and plating 185 runs. He also led the Loop with 219 hits and paced the Aces to the league championship. Dynamite's season of blasts boosted Dunn above D-ball forever, as he moved on to the Texas League, American Association, and Southern Association over the next few years. By 1940, he reached the Pacific Coast League, which at that point, when Major League Baseball had yet to expand westward, was something closer to big league ball than the highest rung of the minors is today. When Oakland signed Dunn that February, the Oakland Tribune's Alan Ward floated the possibility that the Oaks newcomer's nickname was a liability. "If that fellow can't come through," Ward opined, "he is damned with considerably more fervor than if his nickname was simply Peanuts or Bud." It's like Shakespeare said, though, a dynamite by any other name, even Peanuts, would pack as much pop. And pop off Dynamite Dunn did for the Oaks. igniting a dramatic Oakland victory with a 12th inning homer in his first PCL game, sticking with the club for 2 full seasons and playing in the upper minors into 1945. That year, Dynamite was playing out the end of a short fuse. He'd been sold from the Southern Association's Chattanooga Lookouts to the American Association's St. Paul Saints over the winter, but he had an unspecified job in Fulton, Alabama that made him reluctant to play outside of the South. He got his wish. The Birmingham Barons bought him from the Saints, but he didn't play inside the South much more either, getting into only a handful of games in his final pro season at age 34. And that's how Dunn was finally finished. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these colorful clubs strove for high power in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Abbey Blues. B. The Mission Reds. C. The Chapel Browns. Want to know the answer? Sing praises. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Minors. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is getting married, and I've got to get into a cake.
Huge thanks to Tony Parks for joining us on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Very cool stuff for the next chapter of Salt Lake Bees baseball coming up in 2025 and beyond. And big thanks to Josh Jackson as well for swinging by on this week's episode of the show. Before we get out of here, we did mention at the top of the show the Hickory Crawdads auction to benefit Hurricane Helene relief efforts. If you are so inclined and would like to donate, like to make a contribution to relief efforts for Hurricane Helene, you can also help Major League Baseball in supporting the American Red Cross by helping at redcross.org/MLB. That is redcross.org/MLB. And you can contribute there to relief efforts as well and do your part to help so many members of our community affected by this horrible storm in the American Southeast. And again, our thoughts with all of those, not just in North Carolina, but in Georgia and Florida and Tennessee and South Carolina and everywhere else that was impacted by this storm. We're thinking of you and hoping that we are doing the most that we can to help in the relief efforts here over the coming weeks and months and years. And it's obviously a quiet final segment of the Show Before the Show because I'm flying solo. No episode of Name That Dude this week. Apologies. But we're headed into kind of a couple of odd weeks schedule-wise for me and Sam and Ben. Sam is headed out on a trip. Benjamin Hill getting married this weekend. You can tweet at Ben. You can send him a DM. You can congratulate him on his wedding coming up this weekend. Very exciting stuff. And I got married last year, and my wife and I never took a honeymoon. So we are headed out on a honeymoon coming up next week. And so for the next couple of weeks, we will be doing some less regular episodes, but the episode that we will release is going to be a fun one. We're going to take a week off, and we are going to also drop an episode which is going to feature a ton of big league talent that we had on the Show Before the Show podcast back before they were big league stars. Sam and I were talking yesterday about just how many guys are currently taking part in the Major League postseason who we had on the Show Before the Show back in the day. I guess this is like the baseball version of being insufferable hipsters. But for example, we had Brandon Nimmo on the show all the way back in episode 31. That was in our first year of the Show Before the Show podcast back in 2015, which is absurd. But you're going to hear from a whole bunch of guys who are currently in the big league playoffs, or by the time you hear it, may have been eliminated from the big league playoffs, but we're part of big league playoff teams this year. That's coming up on an episode of the Show Before the Show here in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to have some fun, even if we won't be with you with a regular episode. But hey, it's big league playoff time. If there's going to be anything to divert your attention, Major League playoff season is certainly the thing to be that. So for Sam Dykstra, for Benjamin Hill, for Josh Jackson, for all the rest, my name is Tyler Maughan. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, and we'll catch you next time.